Good morning and welcome to another edition of Our Town here on 94.9 and 99.1 The River. My name is Darren Swinson. Our Town, as always, brought to you by Decorah Bank and Trust. We'll have four guests on the program this morning. A little later on in the program, we'll check in with Waukon City Manager Gary Boden. We'll also have a conversation with Logan Hopp from the Winneshiek County Sheriff's Department, talking about the new canine as part of their law enforcement force. We'll be chatting with Andy Nimrod from the Decorah Parks and Recreation Department. We got some fees on the campground with recreation fees, some swimming pool fees that are going up a little bit this year, but there is some way to help out those in need as well. We'll talk with Andy about that, but we'll kick off the program. Next week is National or Iowa Severe Weather Awareness Week, and here to chat with us about Severe Weather Awareness Week is Todd Shea with the National Weather Service. He will be our first guest on Our Town. It's brought to you by Decorah Bank and Trust, and you're listening to it right here on 94.9 and 99.1 The River. Having a chat with Todd Shea with the National Weather Service in La Crosse. Next week is Severe Weather Awareness Week in the state of Iowa. And Todd, it's the end of March. Spring has sprung, and some great information that your office provides that are necessary for folks to know starting with next week. But give us the general reason for this week, the general purpose for this week, and the reminders that folks need to keep in mind as the spring and summer months are upon us.
Yeah, well, hi, Darren. Well, this time of year is kind of our transition season, right? It's going into spring, and I think like anyone that lives in the region knows, you can get such a wide variety of weather this time of year. So we use it as a week to just remind folks as we kind of shift out of winter into the thunderstorm season of the different dangers that thunderstorms bring us every year, whether it be just lightning risk or tornadoes or strong winds, heavy rains. They all can come from severe thunderstorms. And so we use the week as just a way to go over those different subjects, and also to host, of course, a statewide tornado drill, just so businesses, schools, agencies can practice their severe weather action plans.
What are some of the main things folks need to keep in mind when it comes to severe weather? Because it's often not a case of if it will happen, it's when it will happen.
You're right. Yep, it's when. I think the first thing is to kind of educate yourself on the information that's out there. What's the difference between a watch and a warning, for example, so that you have the information you need. And then leading into that, have a good information source. Does your place of business, does your family have ways to get alerted when severe weather is imminent or expected in the area? And then, of course, to have an action plan. Again, it could be from expected tornado activity. It could be just the lightning risk at a soccer game or a tennis match or something like that. So, be thinking of information sources, have an action plan, practice it. Small steps sometimes can make a big difference and save lives.
You mentioned next week the statewide tornado drill will take place. Explain what will go on when it comes to folks getting ready for a potential storm like that.
Yeah, at 10 o'clock on Wednesday of the week, we host a statewide tornado drill in Iowa. And while the drill doesn't incorporate everything like we might in a live scenario or a real-time severe weather event, we still try to get information out there. We try to pick a time so that people can kind of practice their action plans. So, our friends in the media will help present information. Some communities might trigger their warning devices, outdoor sirens, things like that. And if the time is not good for particular businesses or schools, maybe find a different time. It's really not as important that everything happen at 10 a.m. on Wednesday as much as it is that everyone practice at some point of what they would do, again, at home, at work, at school, in case of a tornado.
And when it comes to a week like next week, the awareness part is the stuff that people need to keep in mind, because again, as we touched on, it's not if this will happen, it's when it will happen and what to do when those scenarios take place. How just important is it to pay attention to potential hazards, knowing the fact that if you do that, you can often stay out of trouble and potentially damaging situations or life-threatening situations.
Well, you're exactly right, Darren. And that's why we kind of push to stay aware, to stay informed of what the weather threat is. Prediction in the weather business is not perfect yet. Most of these rounds of severe weather and most of these most threatening days are predicted, and there is information out there that alerts you that that threat is expected, is coming, and then we also try to educate people on what to do. So you're right, just taking a few steps, having an app on your phone or just keeping a closer tabs on the weather when you're vulnerable outside or anything like that, it goes a long way.
How much better has weather prognostication gotten when it comes to severe weather over the years? Because, I mean, I've been in radio 28 years. Back in the day, if there was a tornado in Fort Atkinson, it'd be the entire Winneshiek County that would be under a tornado warning. Now it's seemingly that you've gotten a little bit better at pinpointing where storms are, and when the alerts come over, you can say a storm's going to be in Decorah at 5:30 and Postville at 5:45 and Waukon at 6 o'clock. In what ways has prognostication specifically related to severe weather gotten better, and how have you been able to do that?
Well, sure. I think it's gotten a lot better, to be honest. Being in the agency now, going on 35 years, we've had huge advances in technology, anywhere from very more high detailed radar systems, ways to enhance that information, better understanding of what to look for on these radar systems as well from a warning aspect. But then you also think about the communication end. And how much information is out there, how many different ways people can get informed and alerted. So yeah, you're not only talking more specific warnings for specific communities to cut down on overwarning, if you will, crying wolf, but just a lot more ways to stay informed. And so we also have, from our aspect, not only the work of using all this fine detail and getting the warnings as good as we can, but we're always working with local community leaders, emergency management partners, storm spotters to collect all this information that is coming and going and use it to alert the public. The bottom line is everyone involved in safety is trying to alert the public out there, especially the vulnerable communities or folks outside, that there is a threat. And so, yeah, the technology is so different. It's kind of a shame sometimes that people actually get caught off guard, when severe weather comes through.
And related to one threat that maybe isn't thought of when it comes to severe weather, but it keeps people it's at the top of people's mind, at least this time of year, is flooding. I know, like, the state of Minnesota has one of their top 10 snowiest winters on record right now. When it comes to the possibility of spring flooding, what is your office sensing right now?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. A lot of the river basins in the region, the smaller ones like tributaries, might be the Turkey, Volga, Upper Iowa, and then you get into Minnesota, the Root River. A lot of those basins are looking pretty good right now. A lot of the snow is melted. We've had a couple, melts. And so while, we're not out of the woods there completely, the threat is much lower there. As you mentioned, our big concern this spring is the main stem Mississippi River. There is a lot of snowpack up north into that, the basin. The whole upper Mississippi River Valley collects over a large part of Minnesota into Wisconsin. And so given how much water is still locked up in that snowpack, plus how cold it's been here so far in March, while our ground is bare, all that melt still has to take place up north. So depending on the timing, depending on future precipitation, I think we're really putting our emphasis on communities along the Mississippi River this year. And that would, go up in towards the Twin Cities to the Minnesota River, in Wisconsin, the St. Croix, and so on. I think I would be in a heightened state of preparedness this year. Certainly keep an eye on things. We'll see how it plays out. But if we warm up very quickly in April, if we get a heavy rain event associated with that, we could be looking at, some significant flooding levels. And so you never know exactly how it pans out, but the risk is higher this year.
Anything we're missing? Anything else the public needs to know about anything weather related in the messages from your office?
Well, I think just keep in mind, I think a lot of people know when damaging wind is coming or tornadoes, maybe even large hail, they get alerted, and maybe they take those threats, hopefully seriously. But don't forget things like heavy rain and flooding, which is actually one of our leading killers in the region, and lightning. Just trying to be tough and stay outside during thunderstorms is a dangerous idea. And you got to remember that lightning threat anytime there's thunderstorms around. So remember all the different hazards associated with thunderstorms as we transition, and take all those threats seriously.
All right, Todd, we appreciate you joining us and giving us all the great information next week. Don't forget the statewide tornado drill next Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Todd, hopefully it's a boring spring and summer, and we won't have to contact you too much, but you're always there to help us out when we need you, and we appreciate that. And once again, thanks for the time this morning.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. Our staff, our office is running 24 hours a day, so we're there to protect life and property, if you will. So appreciate it, Darren.
Todd Shea, National Weather Service in La Crosse. Iowa's Severe Weather Awareness Week comes up next week. Having a conversation this morning with Andy Nimrod. He is with the Decorah Parks and Recreation Department. For those of you watching the program, his Zoom camera isn't working, but we can trust that Andy is actually there. But the reason we're having a conversation with him this morning, we've talked about it a little bit when we've had the conversations with city managers, that some property tax legislation at the State House is having an effect on the current year and could have an effect on future years budgeting at the city level, and that has definitely affected the Parks and Recreation Department in Decorah and forced some decision by the Parks and Recreation Board. Andy, in what specific ways will customers, for lack of a better term, see some fees increased when the summer recreation season gets going and the outdoor camping season gets going?
Sure. Thanks, Darren, and thanks for having me. It's been a while since I've talked to you on this show, so it's good to get back with you. We are looking at some increases in our what we offer both at the campground. We're looking at about a 20%. Well, honestly, Darren, it's kind of across the board, whether it's campground, the pool, recreational programming is looking at about a 20% increase. And so in the pool, that means it's going from, for somebody like you or I to go to the pool, it's going up from $5 to $6. A dollar increase in passes and that type of thing would go along with it. At the campground, that means about a $5 increase if you're pulling your camper in and going to park it and plug it in overnight. And recreational programming right along that same way. With rec, though, maybe it's as much. Sometimes it's maybe the hours aren't quite as long, or maybe it's a 5-week program instead of a 6-week program. So it might not just be an increase in cost, but it might be not quite as much time into it or something along those lines. But that was kind of what the hand we were forced. But I think overall our pricing is still fairly affordable. I don't feel uncomfortable that it's gotten out of control or anything like that. And the city looked hard at it, both the council and then staff looking at it and trying to look at, either one, you have to reduce services, or two, you have to get more revenue and to make those budgets line up. And so it's a combination of both. And in my world, it was more along the lines of raising some fees, where other places it was more of a reduction of some of the operational costs. So
And when you look at the reasons some of these are affecting the park rec programs, would it be fair to say perhaps the park rec program has the ability to raise some revenue through fees that perhaps other parts of the city budget do not? Is that one of the reasons the park rec is being affected by this, maybe more than some other city departments?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we all know that the Pulpit Rock Campground is, one of the premier campgrounds across the state of Iowa, and we get a lot of visitors, and so it definitely is the breadwinner in my department. Overall, park and rec things don't generate lots of income. Phelps Park doesn't generate really much income at all, other than a few shelter reservations. Swimming pool, there's definitely fees, and we try and cover as many of the expenses as possible, but it is an amenity just like a park in that we don't always cover all those costs. So trying to help out and spread it out a little bit though.
How can you make sure that the services that you provide can be maintained as well as possible, knowing the fact that there are some shortfalls the city is dealing with?
Well, I think the city, both staff and council and administration, have worked to try and balance that out a little bit, if you will. Just in that combination of, for example, if you want to save money at the pool, don't open it, right?
Yeah.
So that nobody wants to have that conversation. I don't want to have that conversation. So I think you got to balance all of that out, and not just, if you went just completely into a cost cutting mode, then you're looking at things like that. If you're looking across the board and trying to spread out those effects, then there's ways of navigating this a little easier, and it's put us in this boat. So
especially when it comes to the recreation fees going up a little bit, the pool fees going up a little bit. Some families may see that and say, can we really afford to do that? But from what I understand, there are some options to help out folks in those categories. Is that correct?
that is very correct. Two different things I wanted to mention today, Darren, are one, we partner with Helping Services to provide pool passes for families in need, those that qualify for it. We want everybody to get to the pool. And so that is a program that we work with them to do that. And then on the recreational programming end of things, one of the more fun things that I've worked with here at Decorah Parks and Recreation is, upon the retirement of my longtime colleague, Judy Severson, we created a scholarship fund in her name through the Community Foundation. And we've got quite a bit of money set aside for scholarships for kids and families that people can use if they're in need for that type of programming. And so it's called the Judy Severson Everyone Plays Fund, and they would just need to inquire about it to us here at the office, and we work on a case-by-case basis with that.
Anything else you want to pass along regarding this specific situation regarding Park and Rec, or the other spring activities that will be going here in the not too distant future?
Well, spring is here. It's official now. We got past the first day of spring, and we're not grooming trails anymore. The skating rink is closed, and so it's spring's here whether you want it or not, Darren.
And I think one of the events that you probably want to touch on is the upcoming Easter egg hunt, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
You bet. You bet. One of our more fun events, got a little bit of a new format this year. The Easter egg hunt, the annual Easter egg hunt, is Palm Sunday, April 2nd. And this year we're having it at the Luther College football field. So it'll be out on the blue turf. We'll be able to go inside if it's a rainy day. So it's rain or shine, we'll be doing it. And be kind of a new event, kind of fun to see there. So, and are partnering with the Luther football team to put that on.
I'm guessing you can't have a lot of blue eggs then, is that correct?
Think I'd want to paint my defense in blue if I played there, but yeah, no, we'll try not to have too many eggs. But in all seriousness, Darren, that it'll be a great event. We do want to take registration ahead of time, so we make sure we have plenty of prizes and eggs, and people can do that here at the Park and Rec office. It is only $4 to register for that.
And what's the deadline to sign up for that?
Sooner than later.
Well put.
All right.
Anything else we're missing? Anything else you want to pass on?
Nope, I don't think so, Darren. Appreciate you calling and setting this up, and appreciate what you do for the community and keeping events for people that are like this that are important to them in front of them.
All right, Andy, we appreciate you taking the time and telling us about what's going on with the Decorah Parks and Recreation Department. I haven't talked to you on this show in too darn long. Moen always hogs the video time, so maybe I'll call you first instead of Moen. But you got a great staff helping you out there, and we thanks for all the Decorah Parks and Recreation Department does for the community of Decorah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Darren.
Andy Nimrod from the Decorah Parks and Recreation Department. The Winneshiek County Sheriff's Office has a new canine member to their team. Drago has been added to the force this month, and Drago's handler is Logan Hopp, Sheriff's deputy, and he joins us now. And Logan, tell us how we got to this point. Drago replacing Rooster as the canine, as part of the canine on your force. Tell us how we got to this point.
Yeah, so we acquired Rooster November of 2021, if I recall correctly. And we went through a class and we were working with him. When we acquired him, we looked for the drives that are important in a dog. And, those are the hunt drive, the prey drive, the pack drive, and he had all those things. And we went and tested him, went through the class, started working the streets. He got certified. Was doing a pretty good job, but the one thing that was always lingering around there was a little bit of temperament, anxiety, and socialization, and just being a little bit nervous in situations he didn't need to be nervous. And so we continued to work through it for about a year. Right around a year, we were trying to see if he would outgrow it because he was young. And at one point we sat down and we started talking about different angles and what we needed to do going forward. And, it was a hard decision. It was a lot of phone calls. It was a lot of time, weeks of discussing and deliberating on how we're going to proceed. And, at the end of the day, we had to put our emotions aside and we had to decide to go a different direction because honestly, the dog, Rooster, was showing too much of these temperament and anxiety and socialization issues when he was on the street and during deployments. And it was creating, safety risks for myself, for other deputies, for the citizens, realistically. And really, at the end of the day, we had to make a choice without our emotions involved. And that's kind of how we got to it. Yeah.
How do you keep your emotions involved? Because every dog owner out there would probably realize that if there comes a day where you have to get rid of that pet, it's probably one of the toughest days in a family. Where there's some similar emotions there when you guys had to move on from Rooster?
Yes, it was very difficult. My wife and me are very involved with that dog. Obviously, he lived at home with us. Rooster was a great dog. One of our family pets. We loved him. But at the end of the day, the decision had to be made for the fact that we need to provide a service to our citizens. And our citizens have supported us for years now and have made our canine programs as successful it is because of their involvement and their donations and contributions. So it was a very hard decision, a very emotional decision. It was one of the toughest days that I've had with a pet, to be honest, because it's knowing that he's not going to get to see me again, and him not knowing that was the hard thing. It was very emotional for our family. But at the end of the day, we have a job to do. The dog has a job to do. And for us to continuously put that put Rooster into that situation, and high stress situation wasn't fair to him either. So knowing that he was going to be in a better place, he was going to go back to the vendor, hopefully find a different area of expertise that he can be utilized. So, yep, we had to make that decision, and it was hard. It was very, very hard. But knowing that I am one of the canine handlers, and I take a lot of pride in that, and creating a good program, and knowing that we've had so much support, I had to make that decision and put my emotions aside, because the program is what needs to be taken care of at the end of the day.
What goes into making a canine a law enforcement canine?
So a lot of times when you're going to look for a dog, you're going to look at different traits that they have, and we call those drives. We look for a hunt drive, and like hunt drive is, the idea behind it is, the dog's going to use its nose to search for something that's no longer there, like doing tracking. Say if a suspect takes off running on foot, I show up later, the dog's going to hunt for that person. And what I mean by hunt is he's going to use his nose. Excuse me, my dog's upset. Must be somebody walking by. So the hunt drive is going to be the dog looking for crushed vegetation or human odor. With that being said, the next drive, we're going to look for prey drive. It's going to be the idea to capture something small, like a ball. We call that ball drive. So with the ball drive, they'll do anything for a ball, and they want to capture that ball. And then the third area is going to be pack drive, that, these dogs want to fall in line and want a pack leader, and the handler is going to be the pack leader. So to be able to quickly adapt to that, sometimes it takes longer, and that bond between the dog. So that's one that, you want to see a dog that wants to be the leader of the pack when it's in a group of dogs.
What value does having a canine bring the law enforcement entity?
It's a great question. And I like talking about this because there's so many different areas a dog can be utilized. The dog can be utilized for narcotics, tracking missing people, suspects. It can be used as apprehension in critical situations where we need a dog to go in and subdue a suspect. And then there's also evidence recovery, where a dog's going to, say, get to a crime scene and say that somebody took off running or was driving down the road throwing articles out, and we're going to utilize that dog to find those evidence, or use that evidence. And the dog does that by using or being trained on human odor. And then, in this last year, Rooster and I had about 42 deployments, and Lieutenant Nesvik had about the same. You're looking at 70 to 80 deployments that our dogs were utilized in. That's public demonstrations, tracking, narcotic sniffs, school programs, all sorts of different areas. It's hard for me to express to people how important a canine program is. It's such a vital asset to have, and you never know when you're going to need it. I just like to say it's an unmeasurable asset that you have, because they can be utilized in so many different areas.
And in a lot of ways, it's kind of like law enforcement. We never want to have to use you guys, but you're there if the public needs us. Is there a correlation there?
Absolutely. We're not going to just, go out and stop people and just run our dog around it. There's going to be around a vehicle. There's going to be reasons behind it. And the importance of being able to have that dog and for it to be there for the public is very important. I know I just talked about that. Mm-hmm. I kind of lost there, but where I was going to go with that is that, as a handler, I have a duty to assure that it is the right situation to use a dog. A lot of the times when I have somebody ask me for a dog, the first answer I'm going to say is no. And the reason that is because I want them, another officer or deputy or anybody, I want them to convince me that we need to use the dog. I don't want to go on calls and just make it a dog call or a canine deployment. I need to be convinced that this is an important call that we need to use the dog. And that's the thing, is that we're a countywide resource, and there's so many people in our county or different agencies, Decorah PD, Counter PD, the state troopers. We're going to be a resource to them, and that's what we want to be. So at any point, any of them can call us. Not only that, we want to be a resource to the public and to assure that, you know, we're there for them, not just for deployments for law enforcement needs. There's other things that we can help. You know, the dog is a locating tool, so we want to be able to assist them. You know, sometimes they won't meet the threshold that's to be able to use a dog, but we're going to do what we can to help the public, because they're the ones that have donated for years and been able to provide us with a top-notch program.
And yourself, how much training did you have to get through to be a K-9 handler? How much kind of continuing training do you have to do to keep that certification up?
Yep. So with, like, when we acquired Rooster, I went to a K-9 class, which was a 12-week course. I did that and we got certified. So the dog and the handler is a K-9 unit together. And once you get a new dog, like Drago, so now we're a new unit. That dog, Drago, has been certified with a different handler in the past. And so he's been certified and has gone through all of the training like I did with Rooster. Now, for me, we did 2 weeks already training. You know, he has a lot of the foundations, and there's some things that I want to, or that we need to improve. But that's just, we're going to do another week here in a little bit for patrol side of things. So we're only going to do a shorter class because I've already had all of the training, and so has the dog. So now I can do a lot of the training on my own with some help from master trainer. But every month we are supposed to get 16 hours of training, and to keep my certification. So 16 hours it's quite a bit, because, you know, I was hired to be a deputy, and now I'm a handler. So that, you know, being a deputy comes first, but I also have to navigate through there to be able to get 16 hours of training. You know, sometimes we do that on our own. Sometimes a lot of times we have help from our other fellow deputies that'll cover our shift so that we're able to go get the training. And that's a very important factor of it, having that flexibility with our other deputies. So to keep the certification, we have to have 16 hours a month. It's a lot of training, but if you get the 16 hours, it's definitely well worth it at the end of the month, because you're seeing the improvement. If you're not getting the training, you're kind of sitting in a standstill.
And one last thing, anything else you want to pass on to the public, as long as you got forum this morning about the K-9 program from the Winneshiek County Sheriff's Office and the good it does our community?
Absolutely. I just want to reiterate the fact that our program has been successful because of the generous donations that the public has given us. It's very important. It's a vital asset, and we just want to thank the public for that. We are definitely good stewards of that taxpayer dollar, and we're putting it towards good use. And really, we wouldn't be where we are today without the generous donations. You know, this has been a difficult time emotionally, and also trying to navigate through it, and, you know, find the right dog. And we found Drago, and it's funny because I watch him do something new that I haven't seen him do, and I just smile because I'm like, we got a really, really good dog, and I'm only excited to take him to the next level and see how far I can take him. And the reason I want to take him farther, because we want a top-notch program. We want a program that our local agencies can call, our surrounding counties can call, and that we can get the job done, and we can be a vital asset to other law enforcement agencies and also the public. With that being said, the one thing that we do like to do public programs, and we like to get out in the public to show the dog, show what the community has supported for years, and we'll continue to do that. We just ask that you call and ask, and if it works or if it's reasonable, we'll do it. We want to be out in public. We want people to see what we're doing and what they have helped us purchase.
Logan, we appreciate you taking the time to talk about Drago, the new K9 as part of the Winneshiek County Sheriff's Office. We appreciate the service that you provide through this program, and we thank you and everybody at the Winneshiek County Sheriff's Office for keeping our communities safe and the service that you provide.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Logan Hopp joining us from the Winneshiek County Sheriff's Office. Yeah, now with the city manager of Waukon, Mr. Gary Boden. Gary is with us for our monthly conversation. Missed it last month as he had a few things going on, but happy to have him back on with us now. And of course, Gary, you've been putting together the budget. Your council set the public hearing for the budget later on for next month, the second meeting of April. Of course, the state legislature, with some laws that have been changed related to property tax collection, has forced you to do a little bit more work on the budget this year. When it comes to the law that got passed regarding the rollback that was set a few years ago, and a few I's weren't dotted and a few T's weren't crossed, how much of an effect did that have on the Waukon city budget for the current fiscal year? How much will that have an effect on the budget moving forward?
Well, as far as the process is concerned, the state did recognize that because of the mistake they made, they gave us an extra month as far as budget preparation is concerned, and we are certainly taking that month. Normally, we would have had to have the budget completed and emailed, if you will, straight to the state by the end of this month. We have until the end of next month to actually complete it, and for all intents and purposes, we're pretty much there. As far as the impact is concerned, we originally anticipated a general fund property tax that would amount to another $31,000 of income, that because they changed the formula, but they didn't change the formula until after they had to take a special law to do it. We had to adjust our budgets downward. I think in our particular case, that $30,000, for all intents and purposes, probably cost us a half a year of a police officer. We have had 7 officers budgeted. We're deferring the hiring of that 7th officer, which is a vacancy right now, until January of next calendar year, or halfway through the upcoming fiscal year.
And do we know what effect any potential changes would have moving forward for the next fiscal year yet, or are you just sitting and waiting for maybe some other property tax laws to get changed?
Well, every fiscal year that the state gets into the budgets and things of that sort, it becomes hold your breath and see what happens kind of thing. To be honest with you, right now, I think we're a little bit quiet on the property tax front, although the real concern is local option sales tax. We have the ability to charge 1 cent per dollar. The state wants to actually collect that for us now and then redistribute it. I don't know what the formula is going to be. And there's also discussion about we need to use some of that local option sales tax for property tax relief. I don't know what that means. We use local option sales tax to build or rebuild streets. We also are looking to through a reauthorization referendum next year to expand the use of local option sales tax so that we can pay for fire trucks and police cars and ambulances, and make improvements and expansions of municipal facilities. We're trying to do all of that without using property taxes, or for that matter, impacting our debt limit. That's part of the thing that's out here is that people might think that we have an unlimited ability to borrow money, and in all candor, we don't. We only have the ability to borrow up to 5% of what would be our assessed valuation.
And when it comes to local option sales tax, if the state changes that law, could you even hold a referendum next year to extend that local option sales tax in Waukon?
I don't even know whether one would be required. I think that part of what's being discussed in this law is that the state just wants to take it over. We use local option sales tax, as I said before, for things that are very critical to our community as far as capital improvement is concerned. It's not like we're throwing this money around frivolously. We pave streets with it. So I don't know. I mean, I've had conversations with Ann Osmondson, and she understands our concern, but there are Republican forces in this state legislature that actually, I think, go beyond the pale as far as how we are supposed to react to taking care of our main mission, which is very simply maintaining property, protecting property, and developing in an economic development, improving the economy.
And I know you and I have talked off the air about this, but as someone who has been in city government for many years, like you have,
yeah, 40.
What is the difference from the outside looking in? And if you could explain this as simply as possible on how the state can run government and how local municipalities can run government.
Well, I think one of the things that people have to recognize as far as municipal government is concerned is we're unlike any other government. Governments are established by legislative action, inclusive of school boards and certainly counties. But municipal governments are businesses. We're not-for-profit corporations. We have corporate limits. We can live, we can die. And our focus has been since the Middle Ages is to provide economy of scale as far as gathering people closer together and simultaneously a protection, if you will. But at the same time, we don't do fancy, tricky stuff. We do very basic stuff. We're like an HOA, a homeowners association. We maintain the property. We help develop the property. We protect the property. There's nothing else about municipal government than just those basic things. And I know that people might think that government gets esoteric and starts doing all these things. And, you know, we have very conservative, a whole range of people on our city councils, and they don't look at it in Republican and Democratic circumstances. They look at it from the standpoint of what makes sense and what can we afford and how can we maintain it. That's probably one of the reasons why I like to work in municipal government. I don't have to deal as much with the R&D type of politics. I say this too often. There's not a Republican or Democratic way of filling a pothole. There's just the right way.
When it comes to the budget that you presented before the council, the tentative budget on Monday night, when it comes to the property tax levy, how is that looking for the next fiscal year for Waukon city residents, and how does it compare to the current fiscal year?
Well, once again, we've been able to keep our municipal property taxes to a very minimal increase. Our property tax rate will be about $15.49 per thousand. That's up from $15. But you don't write your check by saying I'm paying $15.49 per thousand. You write your check as far as dollars and cents is concerned. And as a result, the actual tax asking that we have is amounting to about 1.5% from last year. An increase of 1.5%. Typical of what we've been doing for quite some time, actually, is very modest, very small, very less than cost of living increases in property taxation. One of the things that we had to be cognizant of this year is the fact that we have expanded our tax increment financing, which in that regard, take some of our tax base off the top of our assessed valuation to pay for capital improvements. We have taken steps to modify that impact so that the overall tax asking still is somewhat less. To give you an understanding, before the snafu at the state level, we had projected a $15.25 increase, or not increase, but a 25-cent increase to $15.25. Another 24, almost 25 cents was added to the tax rate after we put together the budget, because obviously the amount of taxable spending that, or taxable value of the property that we could tax against decreased. And in reality, our tax rate went up that next 24 cents, and the amount of money that we actually collected reduced by $30,000. That's how low our taxes are, is the rate went up higher, even though the dollars went down lower.
Couldn't you make up that $30,000 by increasing the property tax a little bit more, or how does that work?
No, with municipal government, we have what's known as a hard cap.
Yeah.
We have a limitation of $8.10 per thousand that has been around for more than 35 years. All cities are at their capped maximum, almost all are. And that realistically, we can't really grab a whole lot of more money. Mm-hmm. The only way that we actually have increases that are uncapped are related to property taxation that offsets health insurance and IPERS, the retirement fund program, and debt service. But the debt service is capped at 5% of your total assessed valuation, so we really can't go crazy about that either. Our limitations are very structured, and even compared to counties, we have to balance our budget with one arm tied behind our back.
In your form of government in Waukon, the city manager form of government, explain the budgeting process. What's your role in the budgeting process? What is the elected official's role in the budgeting process?
Well, by ordinance and by desire of the city council, the city manager prepares a budget, a recommended budget that's presented to the council for their review and approval. And as of last night, that is what we did. I get together with the department directors and Lana Snicker, who's our finance director treasurer, and we formulate the budgets. And we do it obviously with one eye, not only on the expenditures, but with the other eye coordinating with what revenues that we have to anticipate and what we can match to the expenditures. This is something that I just finished my 27th budget as a city manager. And you know going in what you kind of anticipate is going to happen with revenues. In fact, I was talking with county officials today in anticipation of what might happen next year in fiscal 25 to try and plan ahead. At the same time, you know, I have a lot of communication with the departments and knowing what's going on there and what their needs might be, not only for this budget, but now anticipating for next year. So we put that all together and we present it to the council. We give them all the detail. Last night, the budget was approved really with very little discussion about the expenditures, but they had received that detail about 10 days in advance and passed it, as they have been for the last, well, for the 4 years I've been here. There's been really little discussion because they understand the process that we've undertaken, and they recognize that what we're doing is not really out of the realm of ridiculousness. I mean, a 1.5% increase, it speaks for itself. So we presented to the council. The council last night gave tentative approval because that is what we publish in the newspaper for next week as notice for the April 17th meeting. And then we'll have a public hearing, and then the council will formally scheduled to formally adopt it or make any adjustment they would based upon the public hearing. And then we're done. But
I know,
as far as what the public is going to respond to, is what was approved last night.
I know most of our discussion this morning has been on budgetary matters, as it often is here in the month of March, heading into April. What other matters, as long as you got the forum this morning, that what do you want to pass on to Waukon residents, as long as you got the horn?
Well, I think one of the things that's going to be significant about calendar 24 or 23, and obviously half of fiscal 24, is that we're going to see the completion or the near completion of the Platson subdivision, which is actually what would be the equivalent by Waukon standards of about 5 blocks of streets. We also are going to see 4th Street Northwest reconstructed almost from the ground up, with some sidewalk installation along 8th Avenue Northwest in coordination with that project. We're going to see a storm sewer, the last of a line of storm sewer projects that started with the basin that we put together in response to a terrible flooding that happened here in 2013. But that'd be the last of the storm sewer projects that we have to alleviate northwest side flooding. That storm sewer project will be at 1st Street and 1st Avenue Northwest in downtown. So that project will be done this year. And there will be water and sewer main improvements and expansions on 7th Avenue Southeast, going from Rossville Road to the creek, really about a block and a half, 2 blocks from Rossville Road. So we have a lot of construction that's going on this year. Next year, we anticipate West Street, 1 block of West Street that's going to connect to the new subdivision to 6th. And assumedly the Harding parking lot behind Main Street on the north side.
All right, Gary, we appreciate you taking some time telling us on what is going on in the city of Waukon. Thanks for the time, as always. Look forward to chatting with you again next month, and I'm happy there's people like you in the world to do the math, because I'd have a couple of ibuprofens if I had to deal with all that.
Well, I've used some this budget season. Thanks, Darren.
Gary Boden, city manager of Waukon. A thank you to our guest on the program this morning, Todd Shea with the National Weather Service in La Crosse. Next week is Severe Weather Awareness Week in the state of Iowa. Statewide tornado drill will take place Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Andy Nimrod from the Decorah Parks and Recreation Department. Logan Hopp from the Winneshiek County Sheriff's Office about the new K9, which is part of the force now, and Waukon City Manager Gary Boden. Don't forget, each and every week we put these shows on YouTube. We realize that can't always be near a radio or streaming device at 9 o'clock on a Thursday morning, but we want to bring the interesting guests to you, the interesting content to you on your schedule. If you're out gallivanting on YouTube, go 3-23 Our Town program. That's a great way to find it out. And we also put the links up on all of the LA Communication Facebook pages as well. Another way we bring what we do to you at LA Communications. A thank you to our guests. Thank you to our sponsor, Decorah Bank and Trust. And most importantly, we thank you. That's right, you, for tuning in, for logging on, or for watching Our Town. And you've been listening to it on 94.9 and 99.1 The River.